Hi, I'm Robert Sullivan, and I am going to be doing my presentation on the economic imperative for intercultural competence. Now, I'm going to be going over the definition in my own words, the book definition. I'm going to give a real life example, then talk about the example they give in the book. Also, I'm going to go over why it's important and how international tourism and higher education has a huge effect on the system, as well as growing industries in the United States has an effect on the system. Now, first off, to basically summarize what the economic imperative is, it's that for countries to really prosper economically, we depend on other countries as well. Like a country struggling on the other side of the world could have major ramifications on us or another country. So it's best for us to keep strong communication to prevent economic struggles in either country. Now, the book definition is basically the economic success of the United States in the global arena increasingly depends on individual and collective abilities to communicate competently with people from other cultures. And the example they give of why this is important is the European banking crisis, because 90% of Greece's bonds and over half of Portugal's and Italy's bonds were held by investors outside of the country. Now, this means that these countries rely heavily on other countries for their economic well being. And countries which have really been a big part of this are Brazil, Russia, India, and China, because they have driven down labor costs worldwide. Now, the example in the book of the economic imperative is they show a picture of this Middle Eastern business couple making a deal with what appears to be a more Westernly dressed business partners, which just shows two very different groups coming together to try to benefit each other economically. And an example I could give off the top of my head would be how our relationship with China as a country, because we produce many of the products we sell here in China, because the labor costs there are much lower than we could ever have here. So it's an advantage for us to have cheaper goods imported from China, and it's an advantage for them because they get more jobs out of it. Now, international tourism has been a huge growth industry along with the higher education, because the international tourists spent over $150 billion during their stay in 2011, which and it's increasing by more than 5% annually, meaning that international tourism has a much larger and larger effect on our economy and is becoming a more important business. Now, U.S. higher education is also a major service sector export, and each year international students spend more than 21 billion on their living expenses, and about 70% of this comes from sources outside the United States. Now, also, what's having a major effect is the U.S. workplace. Um, our workplace is becoming more and more diverse pretty much every year. For example, in recent years, the number of businesses opened by Asian Americans grew at twice the national average. These businesses averaged more than 326 billion in revenues annually. The number of American businesses also continue to grow. More than a million small businesses are now owned by African Americans. And also, Latinos are also coming up in the industry, and they generated about $539 billion annually. And some economic imperative is extremely important. Um, we need we need to keep up the effort, and because losing my train of thought, but the economy, if our economy is not doing well, it's tough to say our nation would be doing well because as times, if you struggle with money, you're struggling with a lot in life. So to keep these communication ties intact is a major advantage to all parties involved. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.